AEW have signed a current world champion, and WWE talent fear more upcoming releases. But first, a top UFC name will be attending AEW's Las Vegas show. Last week, AEW president Tony Khan and AEW announcer Jim Ross would be present at the UFC 273 show, sat right behind UFC president Dana White, who invited them to the event. Ross would speak on his Grilling JR podcast this week, revealing that Khan has returned the favor and has invited Dana to attend an upcoming AEW show, and Ross would say, "He and Tony are buddies and I've known Dana for a long time myself, probably not as well as Tony does. He remembers my name and I was glad I came, so he's just a great host and a good dude. When we're in Vegas coming up in several weeks, he's going to come to one of our events, so Dana's a good dude. We have a lot in common, we're trying to sell tickets to a live event and then televise it." It's not clear which Vegas show Dana will be attending, however AEW will be holding 3 shows there in the coming weeks. Not only will the Double or Nothing pay-per-view be held in Sin City, but so will the episodes of AEW Dynamite and Rampage that week leading into the event. Next up, an AEW wrestler has revealed why they quit WWE. Toni Storm would appear on Busted Open Radio this week, where she opened up about her decision to request her release from WWE in late December. She said that she wasn't banking on going anywhere else and left suddenly, describing her decision as an out-of-body experience. Storm would go on to say that her career in WWE wasn't as she imagined it would be, stating that it just wasn't the place for her, and she said, "There was a moment where I realized it wasn't for me, and as much as I might have romanticized it as a child and thought that this is my dream and this is what I have to accomplish, I just realized maybe it's not. And maybe this isn't the place for me and who I am to take someone else's spot that actually really wants to be here. That's not fair. I just thought I'm still going to be a wrestler. It wasn't the place for me, it just wasn't. I really thought it was, and I guess I romanticized it so much in my head. I thought this is where I've got to be, and I guess I got there, and it wasn't the same thing that I wanted. It just didn't sit right, there's so many reasons." Following her requested release, Toni would make her AEW debut 3 months later, qualifying for the Owen Hart Women's Tournament in her first match when she defeated the Bunny. She has yet to wrestle since, but is now scheduled to take on Jamie Hayter in the first round, with many predicting yet another win for Storm. And next up, Tony Khan has discussed AEW's latest debut that didn't go so well. On the latest episode of AEW Dynamite, the show would close with the debut of Satnam Singh, who appeared out of the darkness to attack Samoa Joe to align with Jay Lethal and Sanjay Dutt. Last night, AEW president Tony Khan would make his weekly appearance on Busted Open Radio, where he opened up about what many felt was a disappointing moment. The negatives that Khan is responding to is the fact that when the lights turned out, this brought up fans' expectations, and then when the lights came back on, they saw somebody that they didn't even recognize. Khan agreed that the debut could have been done better and said, "I could have done it better. It's like, it's one of those things. I wish I had done it a little differently because the fans are always going to be right. So if the fans don't like something, sometimes there's some things about it where you're trying to get heat, which is trying to get heat situation. People aren't always going to love it, but there were things about it that I probably should have done differently, now I see in hindsight. And to be honest, it wasn't my idea to turn the lights out, but I am the ultimate filter. I'm the person who everything goes to. I put the outline of the show together, and when I came in Wednesday, I thought it was the best outline I've ever put together. One of them, at least. It was as much strong wrestling as you could possibly fit into the program, and I thought up until that point the show was excellent. And to be honest, the person who brought up turning the lights off has over 30 years of experience in pro wrestling, and when they brought it up to me, I was only looking at the pros, and I should have thought about the cons because that is my job as the person who decides what goes in and who filters out these ideas. We had all these people in the room, and somehow not one person, when that idea came up, brought out the negatives. It's been reported by Grapsody's Will Washington that Singh has been pushed to television following the Discovery Warner Media merger, with it designed to create a big angle for the Indian market. Warner Media, who owns the TBS and TNT networks that air AEW television, has merged with Discovery, who owns Eurosport, which is the home of AEW television in India, with the promotion looking to further their international growth. Now let's take a look at Stone Cold Steve Austin's reaction to his wrestling return. Earlier this month, Austin would make his in-ring return at WrestleMania 38, where he took on Kevin Owens in a no-holds-barred match, walking away with the victory following a stunner. This week on the Grilling JR podcast, the Texas Rattlesnakes' close friend Jim Ross would reveal Austin's reaction to the match and said, "I wasn't going to let the WrestleMania event pass by without checking out Stone Cold. He and I talked, we communicated Saturday after the show. He seemed to be really happy and almost relieved that he pulled it off. He and Kevin Owens deserve a hell of a lot of credit for what they did. To show you what kind of ball player Austin is, he hadn't been on the field in 19 years. It looked like he didn't miss a step and they kept the match in their lane. I thought that was really smart how they strategized and laid out that match. It was absolutely a masterpiece in my view, and Kevin Owens deserves a lot of credit as well. You have to have a dancing partner to make these things work as well. Steve got a great dancing partner." Austin has refused all approaches for an in-ring return ever since his first retirement at WrestleMania 19 in 2003, where he would finally lose to The Rock on the grandest stage of them all. It seems that despite his hesitation in the past, things went to plan with him happy with how things went down last weekend. Next up, an AEW star has reacted to praise from John Cena. In a recent news video, we talked about an interview with the former WWE champion who had a lot to say about AEW up-and-comer Max Caster. As Caster makes his entrance, he cuts a freestyle rap on his opponent, reminiscent of John Cena's Thugonomics gimmick from his early days in WWE. When asked if he could beat the AEW star in a rap battle, Cena noted that Caster is a better rapper than he is. During a recent virtual signing for Golden Ring Collectibles, Caster responded to Cena's comments, calling him a huge influence on him, and Max would say, "John has been very, very nice to me, and when he didn't need to. He reached out and he made that public, so I'm allowed to say it now. So he reached out and then he said things publicly about me in Forbes, and that means a lot to me. So it's never been about beating him in a rap battle. It's about trying to get past the point of people saying I'm a Thugonomics ripoff. Am I to an extent? Maybe. He's a huge influence on me, one of my favorite wrestlers. The guy I will say in 2004 that got me back into watching wrestling. So to me, it's not about beating John at anything. It's about paying homage, paying respect, and elevating what he did, and I think, by his own admission, that I am there, I'm doing it, and I hope to continue doing that." Caster has been gaining some valuable experience as of late, stepping in the ring with the likes of Keith Lee, CM Punk, and Samoa Joe, albeit in losing efforts. He has a big future ahead of him, and praise from one of the industry's biggest names will only help him establish himself as a star. Now let's take a look at All Elite Wrestling's newest signing. It's been confirmed by Fightful Select that the reigning Ring of Honor World Champion Jonathan Gresham has finally put pen to paper on a contract with AEW, with him set to continue under the ROH banner. The report notes that the deal is said to be similar to that of Korn and Toa Leona, who are under contract with AEW but will be part of the ROH roster, at least for now. Of course, AEW President Tony Khan recently purchased Ring of Honor, with it seemingly acting as a partial developmental brand for All Elite Wrestling going forward, with some top names sprinkled on top. As for Gresham, he will make his next ROH World title defense tonight at Battle of the Belts, the first time an ROH title has been defended on an AEW show. He will take on a former champion, Dalton Castle, who will be making his AEW debut. Gresham became the undisputed ROH World Champion when he defeated Bandido in the main event of Supercard of Honor to unify the two world title belts, with his match with Castle being his first defense as undisputed champion. And finally, multiple WWE talents are anticipating more roster cuts. Yesterday was March 15th, a day that has seen mass WWE releases for the past couple of years. This has caused internal worry amongst the roster, with many expecting more releases to happen in due course. Yesterday, Fightful's Sean Ross Sapp took to Twitter to report on the feeling within the WWE locker room, and he said, "I know a lot of people have been concerned about WWE release day, including much of the talent. At least one higher up told me that they didn't know of any releases set to happen today, if you'd like to take their word for it." As we know, there were no releases announced on the 15th, and it is now officially the 16th, but this doesn't necessarily mean talent are out of the clear just yet. Over the past few years, hundreds of WWE superstars have found themselves on the free agency market, with the company looking to push in a new direction. Post-WrestleMania WrestleMania season usually sees a number of roster cuts, with talents within the company feeling something is coming very soon. As always, we'll keep you updated should any news break over any WWE releases, so be sure to subscribe with the notification bell turned on to keep you up to date with all the latest wrestling news. And before you go, make sure you check out 10 things that you didn't know about AEW's Hook.